Welcome to Hype Nostalgia TV. We basically just, we've been racking our brains trying to figure out how we can interact with our fans more and engage with you guys, since touring is not an option at the moment because COVID is a beast. And we came up with this idea of creating Hype Nostalgia TV, where Adam and I hop on once a week with some of our favorite artists to talk about nostalgia, what their teenage bedrooms look like, and all things of the past. Because, of course, our new record that's coming out on September 25th is called Hype Nostalgia, and it's all about that. It's all about pre-loss, and it's all from the perspective of writing about the past or in the past. So thanks for tuning in. We're really excited. This is our first one. Adam, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. Been working on music and learning video stuff, so it's all been exciting.
So you've been doing a lot in quarantine. I feel like you've been really teaching yourself a lot of video software programs. And I mean, you're the reason why we're able to get these live streams going. How has that been going for you?
I mean, I started off with, back in March, I think it was right when quarantine happened and COVID hit. We did a stream 2 weeks later. And that was interesting. I mean, that was a huge learning experience. But I've upgraded past, free software to now working in Final Cut.
You're killing it. You're killing it. Just have to say. I'm so grateful that you're my bandmate.
Yeah, same.
Have you watched anything fun lately or anything memorable?
With all that being said, I have not been watching much TV. But when I'm editing and doing all this stuff, I definitely have music on constantly. And music's always been my go-to. If I had to choose anything that I've been listening to, watching, it's definitely been music. The new Hum record is constantly on.
So good. That album is so good.
Yeah, so good. Out of nowhere, such a shock. And then the Tom Misch record I've been obsessed with. I mean, Yusuf Days is my favorite drummer right now, for sure.
You're the one who got me into Yusuf Days, and I'm obsessed, so obsessed.
Yeah, he's a beast. And I just love how musical he is. He's not super... I mean, obviously, there's a technical side to him, but I just love how musical it is. And especially in the capturing of the drums and the production and the people that he works with is just phenomenal. So
I've been listening to the new Brandy album. I've been a huge fan of hers ever since I was fifth grade, sixth grade. And it's actually really experimental and the production is insane. It's so good.
I didn't realize that she had released a new record.
Yeah, it kind of came out as a surprise, very no marketing. At least I didn't see anything, and it's just I'm just blown away. I've never really. It feels more of an experimental R&B album than your standard pop record. So go check that out. It's so good.
I'll give it a listen for sure. How's quarantine been treating you?
I've been able to keep sane because being able to work on projects like this with you has truly given me a focus and a purpose. So I feel for the most part pretty good. I've also been trying to just stay positive. There's definitely some days where I can get into existential thoughts of what does anything even mean? But it goes away, especially after working on music or doing live streams or this new series that we're doing or the WNBA podcast that I'm starting. It's keeping me busy. So I'm trying to just keep busy so that I don't get into those heavy thoughts.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you're doing the same and keeping busy. I mean, you've been doing video editing and all kinds of stuff. I mean, we're all video editors now, apparently. So
Yeah, I feel we've had to learn many new skills during quarantine, which isn't a bad thing. And it's actually been exciting. I love editing a lot more than I thought I would. And so it's been really fun, especially for the record, trying to make little visualizers or just to help tell the story of the songs a bit more. But yeah, also learning Final Cut Pro and trying to, learn all the tricks. But I have t-shirts. Hype Nostalgia t-shirts. that
I want one.
I got you.
I know.
I got you in the mail. We have them in white, and we also have this really cool color scheme. And I have a lot of mailing to do this week for all the orders that we have. We have a handful of t-shirts left on Bandcamp. So if you want yours, go get it. This is my cat's tail just hanging out. Dresden. So yeah, if you want, we have a couple of t-shirts left. Go to our Bandcamp. And we'll send them out to you. And with every purchase, I'm going to send along a handwritten thank you note. So yeah, if that doesn't propel you, then I don't know what will. All right, this portion of Hype Nostalgia TV is called Hype Insight. Obviously, the main reason why we're doing this is we're putting out a record, and it's coming out next month on September 25th on Car Park Records. And so this segment is we're going to take a brief moment to break down a track a week that's on the record. And so as our first week, we should maybe break down the first single that came out called Come Around Me. Recording Come Around Me, it almost didn't happen. I don't know if you remember this, but we worked on this track with two producers, Wes Jones and Dev the Goon. And Dev the Goon sent me the initial track idea, and I wrote to it, loved the song, knew immediately that this was going to be on the album. It had to be on the record. But when we were in Stinson at Panoramic Studios, Dev lost the master file. And so
I remember that.
There was and Wes was like, well, we don't have the master file. We only have an MP3, and that won't fly. I was prepared to allow an MP3 on the record. That was how much I was like, no, this song has to be on the album. I just knew it. And so Dev went into the next room while we were recording something else and busted out this whole, like from scratch, wrote the entire song again, but even added more elements in 45 minutes. Do you remember that?
I do. And I don't even think he left the room. I think he was like standing in the middle of the room on his laptop, just like writing it. It took like 15 minutes. And then before I knew it, all of it was back into Pro Tools and you were tracking to it. So I was like, okay, I don't think I really understood. I mean, I understood that there was lost files, but it happened all so quickly that 30 minutes later we had the song back. So it was like, okay, we're good.
And he also added in the chorus, there's like a new piano harmony melody that he added. Like that wasn't in the original version of Come Around Me. And so I was just so blown away by that kid's talent. And he's 20 years old now, and he's just a beast when it comes to music production or songwriting. That guy is crazy. But yeah, we recorded. So once he brought the song back, we tracked the vocals there in Stinson. And I just knew from the moment that I think I wrote the song in like 30 minutes initially. And the chorus just came like just immediately, which doesn't normally happen. And so we tracked that, and I just knew like this is going to be, I thought like this is going to be the single. This is going to be the first single.
Yeah, I remember getting the stems into Pro Tools and then hearing the song and what he had added and then getting you on top of it. And I don't remember, but were we tracking in the bedroom upstairs? I think you were downstairs at that point. But in Stinson Beach, the Panoramic House, you can actually record in the master bedroom, which I think we did at one point or one of the sessions, but I don't know if it was that song. But, back to the whole bedroom nostalgia theme, recording in a bedroom.
This album definitely has had many of the songs were recorded in bedrooms, whether it was in like my first LA bedroom or Bitchwave Studios, which was kind of like a tiny bedroom, or Stinson's bedroom. And now, even though we can't tour, we are still preparing the songs because we're planning a couple of really special shows that we can't announce just yet, but just know we're planning some stuff for the album release. And so, Adam, how do you approach these songs from the live aspects? Because for anyone that's wondering, our live show is so tight because of Adam, and also because we've got to give a big shout out to Lex, our light designer.
Yes.
But Adam truly takes the songs to the next level. Walk us through the process of like when you were given the stems for the song's finished. How do you approach then transforming it for the live setting?
It's been interesting to work on Hype Nostalgia because when I get a song, it's always about the vibe. It's always about the energy. And while all the sounds and everything happening in the track are cool, I normally just pay attention to your vocal. And it usually takes me a little bit to kind of wrap my head around it. But again, Dev and Wes are amazing, and they give me the drum idea. And then it's really just putting it to the kit. And like, the fun thing is there are so many different sounds, and it is very heavily electronic music that I can then kind of recreate a lot of the sounds that they created with my drums. So sometimes I'll end up like taking stuff out of the tracks that I now am playing. Sometimes I'll leave it in to accent it. I always think it in terms of like, you know, how the songs go into each other and the wave, I guess, of like a performance, I really appreciate. So, you know, having those moments of pure explosion and aggression, and then having moments of like just beauty and emotion, and, you know, not always having to hit hard. I've trying to teach myself that. So
I just have to say it's so incredible. Like, I mean, I've always known you're such a musical drummer, but to be able to work with someone who understands like those small nuances, and especially who pays attention to vocals. Because I will say, I feel like a lot of, I mean, this is not to diss drummers, but I feel like a lot of drummers do not do that. I could be wrong. I'm not a drummer, but I know I've worked with some drummers who haven't done that. And so it's really incredible when, especially right now, when you and I can't be in the same room all the time, we're sending each other these ideas back and forth. And so when you send me, you know, Come Around Me or Free Throw, and I hear your ideas and how much you do complement the vocals, it is so cool. It's like you always leave enough room, but you also always give it a bit more flair and like what I hope, and also surprise me. Like, I'm like, yes, let's do this.
I mean, with other drummers, I think a big thing is like practicing like restraint. And I mean, I played in metal bands for years, and that's not necessarily what you do. It's kind of up front, you know, the vocals are almost as percussive as the drums in metal. And I think I kind of approach the same way, but in a different vein, in like just making sure that me and you are locked together and the tracks are behind us, because it's all about the vibe between me and you. And again, I always just look at my drums as like adding energy and accenting you live.
I love it. I can't wait for everyone to hear to hear the whole record live. Like, Adam and I are still working on learning the songs and like writing to them. But it's going to be incredible. Like, I can't wait to debut the entire album to these folks.
Yeah, it's our best work for sure. And again, with that wave of, you know, how we always approach the live show, I really feel like this record, not that, you know, we don't repeat ourselves, but like this record just really touches on some real roots of yours, like with R&B. And then again, yeah, there's some of the heaviest tracks on this record too. So while still maintaining, you know, the soft emotional tracks and stuff like that. So I don't know. I'm excited.
Yeah. For today's guest, it's our very first guest, I am so excited. If you have been noticing what t-shirt I'm wearing, then you might have already figured it out. But our first guest on Hype Nostalgia TV is none other than Tegan Quinn of Tegan and Sara. And I geeked out. Even though we're friends, I still geek out just talking to her, because Tegan has been such a huge influence on me, not only musically, but, you know, on my life and for my queerness, and being able to feel, when we were signed to Warner Brothers, like feeling like, oh, there's other folks like us on this label. And so we had such an incredible time talking to Tegan about what her teenage bedroom looked like. Adam got to talk about their obsession with Eddie Vedder. And I got to finally ask Tegan about the L Word scene of when Tegan and Sarah are playing and Dana is hallucinating on LSD. Classic scene for all the L Word fans out there. So let's take it away. This is Hype Nostalgia TV with Tegan. Tegan!
Hello. What's up?
Hi, you two.
Hey.
Hi. One, thank you so much. I love this shirt and it's amazing.
I just got mine in the mail yesterday.
I've literally worn it for probably a couple days.
Well, thanks for having me. This is so exciting.
Yeah. Thank you so much, seriously, you were you were my first thought, because the entire album that we're about to put out is called Hype Nostalgia, and it's all about nostalgia. And it's about pre-loss, teenage years. And then, of course, high school. Your incredible book is literally all about that. And then your last album is all about that too. Let's just get into it. We're talking about nostalgia. The series is called Hype Nostalgia TV. So obviously your book, like I was saying, is about your high school years and nostalgia, your latest album. So we want to know, what does nostalgia mean to you?
It's such an interesting question because, prior to a couple of years ago, whenever nostalgia comes up a lot when we're promoting records, people always want to know what we're writing about. And obviously we always write about pretty much have exclusively written about relationships, and generally past relationships. And so I've been asked dozens and dozens of times over the last 20 years about am I obsessed with nostalgia? Am I obsessed with the past? And I am. I'm a total past addict. And my joke is that I could never have another heartbreak, and it doesn't matter because I will remine every heartbreak and terrible thing that I can recall, again and again and again, because there's nothing I like more than looking back and then reprocessing something and then waiting a few more years and then going back and reprocessing it again. Because I think, but for me, the benefit of looking backwards is learning something about that experience and taking that forward with you. So I really love looking backwards, and I love, especially as I've gotten older, I think I'm a very sentimental person. So I like nostalgia because I think it's wrapped up in learning and growth and perspective and, being sentimental. So yeah, big fan.
Yeah. Same. I feel like nostalgia gets such a bad rap, you're not supposed to.
Why do you think it does? What is it?
I don't know, because I've always been nostalgic. I remember being a little kid, just chilling on the sidewalks for hours, just thinking about the past, even if it was yesterday or a month. I've always been so deep into that. And so I don't know why people are always saying don't dwell in the past, don't get stuck in the past. And for me, that's my favorite thing to do, is to daydream about the past, every day.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I wonder if we just attach nostalgia to kitsch. Oftentimes we only speak of it in the perspective of a rehashing of something or a recreating of something, or, to actual items from our childhood and those kinds of things. But for me, nostalgia is all wrapped up in emotion and feeling and memory. So I don't think of it in the context of Hollywood film remake or, ode to this era, or guys, purely selfish.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's how I process things. And it's definitely even the hard stuff. I love going back to hard, difficult memories. Cause I feel I learned so much more about myself by doing that. Mm-hmm. But what did your teenage bedroom look like? I kind of know because I read your book, but
it's funny because my room really, my room transformed a few times in the course of my life. I think probably the biggest transformation happened between grade 9 and grade 10, because in Canada, where we grew up, 9th grade to 10th grade is where you jump into high school. And that's certainly where the biggest transformation in my room happened. But also when we started junior high, so 7th grade, that was the other big transformation where the stuffed animals started to disappear, and, just more posters on the walls. But definitely between 9th and 10th grade, once we started high school, within the first couple months, my room, transformed. And I have a lot of photographs of my room during that time because we lived in a house out in the suburbs, and my stepdad had built, and we decided to put it up for sale and move over the course of like our 11th grade year. And so he was constantly photographing the house to put up, on the, like, I guess the photos to do with, I don't know, it's a time ago, I can't remember, but he was like, needed photos, and he constantly was taking photos. So it was really funny to revisit it. It's probably the thing that was most profoundly weird for me is that it's a pretty normal teenage room. Like, it's just a double bed, clearly a, duvet bedspread type thing that my mom has picked out. There's like a giant, full of what's the,
bean bags?
Yeah, beanbag chair and like stereo, like, super like regular things for like a 90s teenager's bedroom. But then the walls are just absolutely plastered with posters and cutouts from, we had a subscription to Rolling Stone and Spin, and all of that is normal too. We were huge music lovers. We were total, badass teenagers and smoking pot, and like, we were into grunge music and alternative music. So everything about my room seems pretty normal for the age that I am and what I was into. But the thing that really fucked me up when we were working on our memoir a couple years ago and I was writing it was that as I zoomed in on these pictures and really started to explore my room, it's just men. Like it's all men all over the walls, and which I found really fascinating because, I didn't come out until I was 19, but I knew that I liked girls. I didn't really struggle with it. I feel like I wasn't comfortable talking about it, and I definitely had like a shyness about it because sexuality felt like sex to me, so I didn't really want to talk about sex. But it was so funny to go back and look at, my room and see, and it's not just guys. Like, of course, there's like just the walls are plastered with like Nirvana posters and, like dudes and bands, but then like the cutouts, like the actual things that are cut out of magazines that covered the rest of the wall with, it's like actors with their no shirts on and like nude dudes basically. and it's so weird, like, because I don't know what exactly I was saying. Like I wasn't like, oh my god, this guy from Young and the Restless is a total hottie. I would have never spoken like that. Like I wasn't like that. So I'm not exactly sure who that was for or what was happening. But that was probably the weirdest part of my room. But looking back on it, it really made me laugh, like to see how like a queer kid who was obsessed with like Sinead O'Connor and Courtney Love and Ani DeFranco, like 95% of my walls were covered with nude dudes.
That's super interesting. It's making me think like, were my walls covered with nude dudes? And
I mean, yeah. I mean, even when we recreated your bedroom for the album cover, it was like, majority basketball player guys. So
it was only basketball players. So Tegan, just to let you know, so we recreated my teenage bedroom for the album artwork. And so we basically like recreated it in a friend's garage. And at the time when I was a teenager, the WNBA hadn't started yet. I was really, really big into basketball. I played basketball. That was like my thing. But it was all guys, all like male basketball players.
And do you like this? It's something that I talk about a lot with other friends, like especially queer people who, they look back at their bedrooms and they're like, oh my God, there were so many signs. Like I have a really close friend and he was like, I had a huge rainbow flag up, but it meant something different in the 90s. But still, like, so many of us admit that looking back, there were so many telltale signs that something was up. But for some of us, like, again, like even with the basketball players, I'm like, okay, there's something kind of like butch about that,
Totally.
So it doesn't seem totally weird to me. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's funny with context to look back and, with this newfound perspective on who we all grew up to be, to look back at our rooms and say, like, who were our rooms for? Were they for us? Were they for other people? Because some of us, I think truly our room was for us. I think my room was for me, but what was I saying? Because I think as a young person, you're presenting your room as a statement of who you are. So what are you saying with your room? Like, what was I saying? Was I like, I like dudes? Like, I don't know. You were saying I love basketball, which you obviously love basketball. What does your room say about you?
Yeah, I just loved Eddie Vedder. Apparently, there was like a fucking, you know, like 6-foot poster of Eddie Vedder. Did anybody try to paint their walls black at any point? Because I definitely did.
Did you really?
Yeah, I
Really?
definitely tried. Yeah, I mean, all about the black, but I never did it successfully. But I had a friend that did it, and I was like jealous. So, but,
I never got to.
Never.
No.
No, we would have never been allowed to paint her.
Yeah, no, I could never have been. Yeah, just curious.
We're going to talk about crushes now. Who was your first crush, whether a celebrity, real life, or both?
You know, Sarah and I both share a memory of crushing out on our childhood best friend that we had when we were really young. Like, I think we became friends when we were maybe 5 or something. And, you know, so we both have memories of, you know, playing house and playing doctor with her.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I remember, who knows how clear, you know, memories are so funny this way, but I have a memory of the 3 of us. Like, we all had water beds because it was the 80s, and we used to like take turns laying on top of her on the water bed, you know, playing mom and dad.
That's great.
But I think my first like proper crush, I was obsessed with Jordan from New Kids on the Block. And
oh yeah,
you know,
my gosh.
that was the beginning of Nude Dudes on the Wall. I had a picture of him like taking his shirt off when I was probably like 7, and it was on the back of my door, and I would listen to their music and I would like press my face against the poster. Again, not entirely sure what that was about. Like, I definitely, and it was never sexual ever. You know, my now when I look back and get nostalgic about that time and whatever, it's all wrapped up in identity. And I don't think it's sexuality because I was too young to think about sex, but I was definitely thinking about gender a lot. And I think that as a young person, pre-puberty, there was like a desire to be like a boy. You know, I don't think I would have ever articulated it as I want to be a boy, but I think like I wanted to be like boys. Like, I wanted girls to like me, and I was obsessed with my girlfriends. And there was something about Jordan, like the idea, again, how I would have articulated this then is different than how I'm articulating it now. But I think I just coveted men, coveted boys, coveted the way that the ease with which they moved, the physicality of their bodies, the way they looked, the way girls were interested in them. The rules for them were so different. I think the idea of turning into a woman like my mom, who was so beautiful, and there was a sexuality about her because, like, you know, she met my stepdad when we were 7, and they dated, and they used to stand in the front entryway and make out. You know, they were 28 years old, like, you know, when they met, and we would watch it. And I think like, yeah, I think it like probably just scared the shit out of me to think like I have to become her. And so I just would rather be him, you know, the stepdad, the slicked back hair and the sunglasses and the leather jacket, and like just women fawning all over him. So that's, yeah.
I mean, I was the exact same way. I feel like gender was a really big thing for me too. And I remember being obsessed with Elvis when I was like 4 or 5.
Oh yeah.
And like wanting to look like him, slicking my hair back and like performing in front of the mirror in my bedroom to all of his songs. And like, and totally did not have the language or know the language back then as to like what it all meant. But having total crushes on all my girlfriends and like wanting to protect them and wanting their attention on me. And yeah, just like really identifying with Elvis or like any kind of male figure for sure. Because I was such a tomboy that I'd already get mistaken like as a boy sometimes. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll just be that and embody that. So I totally get that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true. I always got mistaken for a girl, so I was always on the and even my first crush, I mean, I was in the suburbs of like Kentucky, and like one of my guy friends, like, I mean, we were like 10 maybe, he was like the first crush, and yeah, playing doctor and doing all those things, you know. It was fun.
I think it's a rite of passage, you know.
Yeah.
And I think often it happens, you know, with someone that you feel comfortable with. There's a certain level of experimentation. Like, no matter how you identify, like the reality is that pretty much everyone I know has a story about their childhood and like whoever they were closest to, and, you know, experimenting. And I try not to, I think there was a time where I maybe looked back and felt awkward about it, but now it just seems so sweet. Like it just seems, well, it's just like the safe place for you to do it. So it makes sense that we all did it.
Yeah, absolutely.
What was one of the first concerts you went to, Tegan?
Well, my first concert ever was Katie Lang.
Oh, amazing.
Wow. All right.
Yeah, and it wasn't like a proper concert. She was playing at a mall. And my mom estimates we were probably maybe 5 or 6 years old, which aligns with history, meaning like Katie had put a record out around that time. So so apparently she was playing in the mall. She had a song on radio, and my mom took us, and we were apparently just jazzed the fuck out afterwards about how short Katie's hair was. Yes. And that we had really long hair, really, really, really long hair. And we became obsessed with cutting all our hair off after that, and we did. But our first proper like go to an arena and see a show was New Kids on the Block in 1988.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Adam, what was yours?
I think the first show I really ever went to, I traveled up to Cincinnati and went and saw Dream Theater, which is like a metal prog rock band that I was into.
Incredible.
I was probably like 13 or 14, I guess, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But
what about you?
Boys to Men, actually. I think I want to say I was like in the 5th or 6th grade. And so I was a weird kid. I only listened to 50s music up until I was like 12 or 11 maybe. And this boy who had a crush on me introduced me to Tupac and bought me a CD, which at the time CDs were like $30. So you had to really like someone if you're going to do that.
He loved you.
Seriously. And then, so I got really into R&B and like 90s R&B, which I still love so much. And so, I remember, it was like, like when radio stations would have those massive concerts and there'd be like 80,000 people on the lineup. Yeah. And Boyz II Men was like the headliner. So
That's amazing.
It was fun. It was a fun one.
Was that technically your first CD then? Or was there there was more before that? Okay.
Mariah Carey Fantasy was my first CD.
That's awesome.
That's great. That's super great.
Yeah.
Tia, what was one of your first CDs you bought?
I mean, the first time I can remember, my parents were really big music people, so we had a lot of vinyl in the house. We had a lot of cassettes. We had a lot of like compact discs that started to creep in. So there was always a lot of music, and we definitely listened to a wide range of things. But I would say like my first time requesting an actual like compact disc and like expressing an interest in music that I recall was REM's Automatic for the People. And And then also like that was the same Christmas that we wanted, like, the Spin Doctors had that really big song. And then there was also Live had that record that had like 9,000 singles on it and sold like 500 billion copies or whatever. But like, I remember opening up my presents and getting all those CDs and being stoked. Definitely I've really loved and mourned the loss of the physical packaging when it happened. But once I got away from it, like once I cleared the stage of sadness and anger and resentment at the move to like digital, I was really glad not to have CDs anymore in my house. Like I gave away my whole collection and was like, see ya. It took me a long time. And I'm totally the type of person that will hate on, streaming and Spotify and how the royalty structure is so f***ed up. But all royalty structures are f***ed up, even with labels. Like it doesn't really matter. It's all f***ed up. Like everyone piling on streaming. I'm like, you obviously have no idea how bad it was when for anyone else. Like it's always bad. It's like there's no model that's good for artists. But I love it. I love having access to anything that I want. I've really embraced it. But it's the lyrics that bother me. That's the part I get hung up on, because I think like lyrics are poetry. And so even though lyric booklets were just this cheap paper that everything was printed on, it was still like, to me, the loss of the compact disc was the loss of books. Really, that's what I attach it to, is because I love words and I love books and I have a massive book collection. And for me, fine, f*** the music, f*** the CD, f*** the jewel case, f*** the plastic, all of that. But we lost the poetry, we lost the books, we lost the lyric books. And we used to study them and learn them. And it was our way of, in my opinion, it was our way of investing in the actual music. Because whether we were just in our car or at home or actually physically going to a concert and singing back to the band their words, it was almost like it was an honor to learn the words. And now, like I said, I just like stand on stage sometimes and I look down and everyone's singing the wrong words. And I'm like, holy like, you don't even know how many daydreams I have about getting to be the size of artists where when we play, we could have a screen, and it's not even so that we could put our faces on it, but just we could have the bouncing ball with the lyrics
just
and teach everybody live.
I love that idea.
Oh my God. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so real though. Cause I think back, like I actually taught myself how to sing by studying lyric books, and like I would write out the words to the lyrics and paste them on my ceiling and then lay down on my bed and just like go through each song and like dissect each word and like, you know, like so meticulously to figure out like how to bend a note for each word. And like,
wow. Holy shit. That's
I wouldn't have
amazing.
done that. I would not have done that, you know, without lyric books. So yeah, I feel you on that. Moving on. What was your favorite movie as a teenager?
Wait, Adam, did you tell us what your favorite first CD was?
Oh yeah.
Ooh. The first CD I bought, like with my own money, was Metallica's Black Album.
Nice.
Wow.
But I was lucky enough to have my family, my dad and my uncle, who were kind of on two spectrum of the 70s music. So my dad had like a lot of like Doobie Brothers and Steely Dan and
cool.
The Eagles. And then my uncle had like the other side of it, which was like Yes and Genesis and King Crimson and like the whole prog rock side of everything. So at an early age, I had like all those were like my first records. But I remember like the first record I actually went and bought was Metallica's Black Album. So.
That's awesome.
What a badass first album.
Yeah.
Favorite movies. I want to know
movie.
our favorite movies as teens.
I mean, the first, like, when we were maybe 12 or 13, I think we were 12 the first summer that we were allowed to stay home without a babysitter or go to a day camp or whatever, because, you know, my parents worked. And so we used to get sent to this day camp. And I think 12 was the first summer that we were allowed to stay home without our parents. And my mom would take us, you know, like Blockbuster, and we had another video rental place called Rogers. And we could go there and rent, you know, whatever it was, 7 videos for $7 or something. And we would, you know, get to pick what the 7 movies we wanted to watch in the week were. And so and it was all old movies. So it was a lot of what my parents were suggesting for us, but we got really obsessed with a lot of, I think, really cool films that my parents told us about. But the first one that I think was like our choice that we were obsessed with, it was clearly too old for how old we were. Because again, it was probably like we were 12 or 13, was Reality Bites.
Oh, so good.
Oh, yeah.
And just can remember like renting it over and over and over again and getting obsessed with the soundtrack and like, you know, all the, you know, cast, like getting obsessed with all of them and putting them up on our walls. Like just that really, really impacting me. And I'd say like probably the other movie that had the same effect was Kids, which is so f***ed up.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
I was gonna, I have a,
Because I think right around the time that Kids came out, and I won't cheat and look it up, but my memory, if I'm looking back, I think that it happened right around the time that we would be entering grade 9. And we got really, at the end of grade 9, beginning of grade 9 is when we sort of started to experiment, you know, with taking drugs, but we didn't have any access to real drugs yet. Like, you know, we didn't have access to, you know, more like classic things like weed and acid and that kind of stuff. But we would buy Gravol and, you know, other medications like that make you drowsy, and we would take a bunch of it and then just try to stay awake. And we used to do it at school. And I can remember like kids in that era of our lives, like, you know, pounding like ginseng and then taking a bunch of Gravol and just like having this like super confusing mixture of like, you know, stimulant and downers all like happening at the same time, and watching these movies. And yeah, we were trash, but those 2 movies really stand out.
I have a cousin who's like 5 years older than me, and he used to manage a Blockbuster. And so I remember him bringing Kids home, and I was way too young to watch it. I was probably like 7 or 8 years old at the time. And just being scarred for like, just scarred. Like I am never having sex. I am never doing like any of this shit. Like just,
I feel that's how I got out of having sex with guys. Like
totally
for sure. Because I was just like, I don't know if you've seen Kids, but
Not down. Yeah.
not down.
That was such
Totally not down.
that was such a great deterrent for me as well.
Yeah.
Adam, what was your favorite movie?
Mine, one that sticks to me, and it was like later for sure, but I mean, obviously there was like, you know, Ninja Turtles and Batman and all that kind of stuff. But I remember watching But I'm a Cheerleader.
Oh yeah,
It was a
totally.
huge one for me. And I think that was like maybe the early 2000s or like 2000. But yeah, at that point, you know, I had kind of at that point closeted myself. So it was like, I don't know, it was just I just remember it having such an impact on me. And
But I think that's so cool that so many, because obviously there were so many movies when I was a teenager that I watched because it gave me a visual, like, and an understanding of what was possible for me, but it didn't necessarily get me out of the closet. So I really relate to that. Like, you know, I was older when But I'm a Cheerleader came out, but there was a lot of films like All Over Me and, you know, Chasing Amy and When Night is Falling. And like, I think just to even see other queer people to start to formulate what that was, like, it didn't drive me out of the closet, but it made me feel like, oh, I see myself. And so that exists for me. Or like, you remember Empire Records? That was another movie that we were like deeply, deeply obsessed with when it came out. A lot of the movies I think we really connected with had a lot of music in it. You know, like I think we were obsessed with My So-Called Life, not because it's like such an exceptional show, although there are things about it that are really, really amazing. But I just think it was the soundtrack. It was the way that the music intersected with the stories, but that it was that Rayanne and Ricky, these very alternative characters were there. And, you know, I didn't necessarily relate to Ricky and his sexuality, but there was just something about how weird Rayanne was and how awkward, like Claire Danes' character, like how Angela was so awkward with Jared Leto, that really moved me. And with Empire Records, the same thing, like the shaved head girl, it was like, oh, like she's not queer, she likes dudes, but it doesn't matter. It was like seeing some sort of alternative woman resonated with me, where I was like, oh, this person exists out there, so I can exist, you know. But it was years before I would actually shave my own head and come out, you know?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, but it made.
But we're stockpiling it, right? Like we're still seeing these images, and we're stockpiling for later when we are comfortable to come out.
Speaking of coming out, I just have to say that I came out pretty late. I was 22, I think. Yeah, when I had my first girlfriend. And the con, this is why it's so cool. It's just still surreal that you're my friend. It's such an honor. It's an honor. Sorry if I'm a nerd for saying that, but like,
oh, it's sweet. Thank you.
I just remember listening to the con with my friends. Like my greatest memory is like of that time is like dating someone I shouldn't have been dating and driving in the car in the back seat, screaming along to the con with like four of my the only like four other queer friends in Sacramento. And it like, your music and you in general have like really helped me like figure out my identity back then. So thank you. We kind of touched on it a little bit, but was there a moment or an album or a song that when you were coming out kind of helped the process?
I'd say that, you know, like my first foray into experimenting with my sexuality was in my last year of high school, and it was with my best friend, and her and I were really obsessed with Ani DiFranco. And so it's so funny because I would really resist. I still do to some degree resist this like assumption, like, oh, well, you're a lesbian, so you must like Ani DiFranco. But which I don't think is true for a lot of people. I think it's, you know, just like how people assume if you're queer, then you must love Tegan and Sara. And that also is untrue. You know, your sexuality does not dictate the genre of music that you like, you know? And our band has fans from all, like we, you know, metal dudes and emo people. And like, you know, like we get, you know, country fan, like it's so stupid and marginalizing. But anyway, but yes, I was really into Ani DiFranco, a girl that we were friends with around that time. She was the one that told us about Ani DiFranco originally, but then Ani was on the cover of Spin. I think this was we must have been in 11th grade. So this was probably like 96 or 97. And it's funny because I didn't connect with her because of her sexuality. I connected because, again, she was just this very alternative, very anti-establishment person. She was carving out her own place in the industry. I liked her "f*** you" attitude. We were very in that. We were in a "f*** you" attitude and anti-establishment part of our lives, and just starting our own musical journey and career and songwriting. And I love that she was independent. You know, we were very like the mainstream. We would never sign to a major label, like that kind of stuff. So it's funny because I really looked up to her as an artist, and so my resistance when later on in life everyone was like, you must have been influenced by Ani DiFranco and loved her. I was like, we'd been in a band for a couple of years, like that wasn't, we listened to punk music and rock music, but I do think that around my coming out, she started to take on more meaning for sure, you know, because all of a sudden I was in love and listening, you know, to Living in Clip, you know, her live album with my secret girlfriend, you know, and we would drive up to her like parents' condo in the mountains. And, you know, it really empowered me. It was really cool. Again, I would have never articulated it like this, but I think that hearing her, I think it was the profound connection happened when Living in Clip came out, because I was hearing this artist in a whole new way because I could hear her audience. So I could hear actual people listening to her, and there was something about the acceptance of her. So this idea that I could now picture not just a queer person, not just someone that's alternative and different, but somebody succeeding that's all those things. And I think that had a profound effect on me in my coming out, because I think I was able to imagine my own success because I could see her success. And I think that looping back to your wonderful compliment and your sweet story about driving around listening to our record, that's been like the ethos of Tegan and Sara since the beginning, is that I just hope that by being out and by being approachable and by being relatable and by being there, that we provide a visual for other people. And it doesn't just have to be queer women, that you can be all these things and you can succeed and be happy and be accepted and be loved. And I think, again, I would have never articulated that about All Over Me or But I'm a Cheerleader or Ani DiFranco, but ultimately that is what that was. That is what representation is, you know?
Yeah,
and I hope,
absolutely.
And now I hope to be that, you know, for other people.
Well, you absolutely are that for other people. I mean, speaking not just for me, but I mean, if we were just thinking about, like, absolutely, you've been that for me. And I really can't thank you enough for that. Like, it's kind of wild because, you know, I was just starting to kind of like take music seriously around that time too. And so like listening to the Con and seeing you, like you said, with Ani DiFranco, like seeing you guys, you know, be accepted and be successful kind of like propelled me and showed me like, oh, it is possible. That's cool. I can do that. And funny that you say that about Ani DiFranco, because I felt the exact same way. Like I, for so long, resisted listening to her because of the stereotype or whatever. People, you know, oh, you're gay, so you must love Ani DiFranco. But then I do. And I actually, after going to her show when I was 22 with my boyfriend at the time, broke up with him that night because I was like, my people, finally. And so, so she does that.
Yeah. And I think, you know, again, like I think that some of our resistance to some of these, you know, references, you know, musically is that like I didn't imagine us as an acoustic band, and also I didn't listen to acoustic music, and so I think there was a period of time where I resisted it, but like once I got into it, I was like, oh, she's a really fantastic songwriter, and you know, I love that she, now in hindsight, I'm like, oh, it's so cool that she experiments on every single one of her records. She does something different. Is it what everybody wants all the time? No. But that inspired us. I mean, it's the same. Bruce Springsteen is the artist we always referenced as doing that. But that's Tegan and Sara. We always experiment and change our sound, because the second that we're successful at something, I don't think, well, let's repeat it. I think, well, now let's fuck it up. Let's take a bit of it and let's do something different. You know, I think that's what you need as an artist. But I think your audience will come to understand that that's important for them too, to see you in different ways and to hear you in different ways, to like go on this journey with you so that you don't get stuck in the past. So that you don't become a nostalgic. You know?
I mean, you're elevating every single release. You guys like just continue to elevate and like reach new levels of your artistry, and it's so inspiring. It's amazing, and that is what I would think you would hope as an artist to do. You don't want to repeat, you know, what you've done. So
I mean, it's a risk. There's no doubt that it's a risk. You know,
totally.
And I think as artists, you know, I always say it's calculated. We take, it's a huge risk for us, but it's calculated. Like we're tweaking with the equation all the time, but we're always taking enough from what we've done in the past with us forward that it's not unrecognizable. I mean, Sarah and I've been saying this our whole career, but I can't escape the limitations of my voice. I can't escape the limitations of my face. I can't escape the limitations of what I am capable of doing in this body. But I can learn and grow and add skills, and I can change and tweak and adapt and evolve, you know, but it will always sound like Tegan and Sarah. Like, you know, that's just the reality. And I feel sad sometimes when I hear artists say that, no, this is what my audience wants. This is what they expect of me. And so this is what I have to do. And I think, you know, I mean it in the most respectful way, but like I think you can train your audience to see you as more than what you once have been. I think if you're really honest and it's not like drastic and dramatic, you know, like even when we made a pop record, we went on the journey with people at once we released it. We didn't put it out and then act, you know, indignant, like, what, you're freaking out? Like, how, you didn't expect this from us? It's like, no, we were like, hey, we get it. This is really weird and this is out there and different. Let's take a journey back a few years. You know, we started experimenting with Tiesto and dance music. We were already on this train. We'd already gotten off that train and gotten on this train. And like, also you may look back at 10 years of misogynist, sexist, homophobic, limiting press in the indie world. And we were already starting to speak out about the fact that we were kind of more interested in worlds that were more accepting, like the dance world and electronic world and the pop world. And, you know, we systematically went through and sort of created a story over the first 6 months of Heartthrob to guide our audience into seeing it from our perspective too, and saying like, this is not a complete left turn. We have been on this train and this is a safer space for us. This is a more productive space. And, you know, we topped it all off with being like, don't you want to see a queer artist succeed in the mainstream? Don't you want to see more of us? Wouldn't you prefer that we not live in the underground forever? And,
yes.
And I think that that's the kind of journey that I think artists have to be willing to go on if they really do want to escape their past and if they want to escape the sounds that they've been on and still be embraced by their audience. But it is possible. It's possible for all of us to do it, you know?
Yeah. My gosh. I feel so inspired.
Yeah,
like,
very inspired.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's so true because, I mean, I've been following you guys for so long and you've always been so authentic. And you know, like you were saying, you didn't just release the record and then just like hope people liked it. You were super transparent with, this is different for us. Let's talk about it. And I always admired that.
Look, I look back at art release stuff like every other artist does, like every other person does when you look back at high school or you look back at when you were young and you just cringe and think like, ugh. You know, I do that too. But I also, there was a turning point, which I would call probably my late 30s, where you look back and you no longer go, ugh, you go, wow, I was just like completely out there. You know, I didn't have a filter. I didn't speak like a politician yet. You know, it's just being me. And I think that authenticity is that. It's just that you're going to get better as you get older and you're going to learn and you're going to speak more articulately and you are going to craft a better version of yourself over and over and over again. But the spirit of who you are, it's always there. And it's our job as artists not to dampen that. And my job is always to remember like that we shouldn't be perfect. It's okay to fuck up. It's okay to sing the wrong note, because it does make people feel like we're like them, you know, that the stage is temporary. I'm only on it for an hour and a half. The rest of the time I'm literally amongst the people, cleaning my own house, doing my own laundry, getting pimples, forgetting my period every single month, like getting bad haircuts. Like it's not, and that if you keep that essence in everything that you do, it's impossible to fly too high from where you are, you know.
I love that. I love it. We have one more question because we know you're a busy person and we appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to do this. I just have to ask, this is kind of a selfish question for me, but I'm a huge L Word fan. And your scene with Sarah in the L Word is classic. Like that is pure nostalgia to me. When Dana is on acid or LSD, right? And is hallucinating, and she's at your guys' show. It's so funny. It's one of the funniest scenes in the L Word. How can you just like briefly, I don't know, tell us how it was to be on such an iconic show?
Yeah. It's funny because the L Word shot in Vancouver, and I had friends that were extras and worked in the cafe of the first season, and they talked about, oh, there's this gay show that's filming here. It's like lesbians from LA, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, I think that, again, I wouldn't have known this then, but there was some definite like inner homophobia still happening in me. Like, so often really blatantly gay things like repelled me because I didn't want to be, you know, similar to what we were just talking about Ani. So when I heard about the L Word, I was not down. Like, I didn't get into the L Word until the second season was already airing, and my mom bought me the box set because my mom doesn't have inner homophobia. So she was like, I got you a TV show. It's about gay people. You're going to love it. And I'm like, okay. And my girlfriend and I at the time, we binged it. And it was deeply, deeply impactful for me because I actually really loved the first season of the show. I think it's the best season. And I felt like they were my friends, you know, especially like Leisha and Kate, you know, they were similar. It felt similar in age to me, and their storylines really resonated with me. And I remember for weeks afterwards walking around Vancouver, like hoping that I would like run into them because I loved Leisha from when I was a teenager. You know, she was in this band, The Murmurs, and she'd been in this amazing queer movie. And so I already knew about her, but I think, it had a profound effect on me. And so then I think during the second season, they actually used one of our songs, which was very exciting. And then we got this email asking if we would be interested in performing on the third season and being in the scene, and we'd have to act. And my instinct, like being totally transparent and honest, was that we didn't want to do it. Always have a weird aversion to being on camera. We're obviously very extroverted people and can be very charismatic, but don't want to be actors and not great at being on set. Like, just, I find even shooting music videos to be like just insufferable and long and pointless because I'm the fucking boss. I'm the artist. And then you get on set and you're just like a fucking chair being moved around. And I'm like, I hate it. Anyway, but eventually we were like, all right, we'll do it. And it was such a great day. It was a total delight. Everybody on set was so nice. Kate and Leisha and Aaron, who were in that scene, and my favorites from the show, they were just like so wonderful on set that day, incredibly gracious. You know, Eileen was I'd met her beforehand. She was wonderful and very gracious. So it was the whole experience of being on the show ended up being really awesome. I cannot watch the performance. I've seen like clips every once in a while come up on Instagram, and I'm like, like of us acting, like hate it, not into it. But yeah, no, I loved the show and I loved being part of it, and have been friends with Leisha and Kate since. They're wonderful people, really delightful. Cool. I think they've really also like come to understand like what a profound and important thing this is to so many people. Like for so many of us, it was our first time really not just seeing queer identities, but also like seeing fiction and fantasy, you know, like that the show was supposed to be like fucking Melrose Place, you know, like that it was supposed to be ridiculous and exaggerated. And I know there's so many things that are problematic about it, but like there's so many things that are problematic that happened last year. Like, I mean, it's just the era we live in, but it was profound. It was profound. It's made a real mark on so many of us to have finally had a show that allowed queer identities to be hot and rich and successful and sexual and flamboyant and frivolous and intelligent. And, you know, like it was really exciting. So I'm glad to have been part of it in some way. And thank you to both of you. This was so lovely. And I'm so excited about this project and the new record and everything you do, and just such a sincere and genuine fan, you know, not just of the art, but, you know, for me, significance of art often is like about how I feel about the people behind the art, and you're both really great people. So,
well, thank you. That's how we feel about you. Seriously, we can't thank you enough for taking time to talk to us. This was so fun.
Of course. It's my favorite thing to do. Hate being in a band. Love talking.
Well, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. We hope that you enjoyed that interview with Tegan. It was so fun. Adam, I love you, and I'm so excited for this series, and I'm really, really excited for next week's guest.
Yeah, I love you too. I'm so happy that we get to do this and hang out with some of our best friends and like really people that we are inspired by and look up to. So yeah, next week, new guest. Let's do it.